Most people think they're paid to work. They're not. They're paid to stay available, to answer emails, sit in meetings, look productive. You've been lied to your entire life. Because if companies only paid for actual value, millions of people would finish before lunch. That's why most people never escape the 9 to 5. And you've probably never noticed it.
I used to think that my job was exhausting. And then I noticed something strange. I wasn't actually lifting anything heavy. I wasn't making life or death decisions. And most days I was just answering emails, sitting in meetings, and switching between different tasks. So why did I come home feeling completely drained? And I don't think that we're just selling our time anymore. I think we're also selling our attention. And once I started to see it that way, I started to understand why so many people feel exhausted, stuck, and never seem to build anything of their own. Now, I want to start with something very small here. A few years ago, I noticed that I was tired in a way that didn't make sense to me. I wasn't physically tired. Like I said, I wasn't lifting anything heavy. I wasn't standing all day. I was sitting in a comfortable chair with a coffee in my hand in a comfortable office doing work that wasn't, at least on paper, it wasn't very demanding. And yet I would come home and just feel like something had been scraped out of me, you know? And for a long time, I just assumed that this was normal, that this is what being an adult means. You know, you work, you get tired, you recover, you do it again. I didn't question it much beyond that. But at some point, I started to wonder if the tiredness wasn't really about the work itself. I started to wonder if it had something different underneath the work. And I think it might be attention. Not hours, not effort, attention. Now, I'm not sure about any of this, by the way. It's still something that I'm still sort of working through, but I want to walk you through how I got here, because I think a lot of people might recognize, well, at least pieces of it. Oh, and by the way, if any of this resonates, consider subscribing. More videos like this are coming. Let me describe a fairly ordinary day, because I think ordinary is the important word here. You get in, you open your inbox, a few emails need short replies, someone calls, a meeting starts a few minutes later than planned, the way they always do. You get back to the thing you were actually trying to do, and within 10 minutes, someone stops by or a message pops up, or another meeting invite appears for later that afternoon. And then a lunch happens somewhere in all of that. Another status update, another quick call, another notification that pulls your eyes away from whatever you were looking at half a second ago. And by the time the day winds down, you look back and it's hard to say exactly what filled it. You know what I mean? Nothing in there was hard individually. None of it required deep expertise or intense physical effort. But somehow the day is just gone. And so is a good portion of your energy. Now, I used to find that very strange. I don't carry bricks for a living. I sit in an ergonomic chair with decent lighting and a coffee machine down the hall. Compared to what earlier generations physically went through at work, this should feel super easy, right? And yet a lot of people, myself included, at various points come home from days like this completely drained and exhausted. Not the body itself, it's something else. And I think what's actually happening is that attention gets sort of fragmented over and over all day long. And that fragmentation has a cost, even when each individual interruption feels minor. Now, I remember the exact day I noticed this. Nothing had really happened. That was the problem, actually. There's a decent amount of research suggesting that the average office worker manages maybe 2 or 4 hours of genuinely focused, high-quality work in a day. Not because people are lazy. I don't think that's it at all. I think it's closer to a natural limit. That's roughly how long a person can sustain real cognitive focus before the brain needs something else. Now, everything beyond that tends to become something else, meetings, waiting, looking occupied. I remember noticing this pattern in myself and feeling a bit uneasy about it. If I'm honest, there were days where I finished what actually needed to get done by early afternoon. And instead of being done, I would slow myself down, stretch a 20-minute task into an hour. And not because the work required it, but because finishing early didn't feel like it earned me anything except more tasks. That's where I started to wonder whether what's actually being measured in a lot of workplace isn't output at all. It's availability or presence, looking busy in a way that reads as responsible. I don't think this is some deliberate scheme. I don't think there is a room somewhere where people plan to keep everyone distracted on purpose. I think that's more that when you place someone for their time instead of their outcomes, you naturally end up managing time. Hours becomes the unit everyone tracks because hours are easy to measure. Value isn't. That's the moment the whole system stopped making sense to me. I want to share something from my own experience here because I think it's where this idea really landed for me. You see, I work as a consultant alongside other things that I do. Companies bring me in to look at processes and find inefficiencies, and sometimes to automate work that used to take a long time. Now, lately, with the tools available now, I've been able to move a lot faster than I used to. So recently, I built something that handles a chunk of customer email responses using internal documentation. Work that used to take a person several hours can now take maybe 30 minutes. From a pure business logic standpoint, that should be a clear win. Same result, faster, cheaper, fewer mistakes. Everyone benefits. This is the part that should feel like a win. But here's the part that struck me. After that actual work was done, I was still expected to be there. Same desk, same hours, not because anyone needed anything else from me in that moment, just because the time itself had already been accounted for. And I remember just sitting there, work finished, just waiting, watching the clock. Nobody said anything. Nobody had to. That sat with me for a while, and maybe the discomfort isn't really about inefficiency at all. Unstructured time that isn't clearly accounted for, is just harder to manage than a fixed block of hours. 40 hours a week is simple, it's predictable. Values isn't like that. Sometimes the best idea of the week comes out of nowhere. In 15 minutes on a walk, away from any desk, but we built a lot of our working world around attendance rather than around whatever it is that it's actually